Hi, this is Scott Holstad, poet, writer, author, post-op, multiple times, messed up. Haven't been able to do a video for a month, only I think a couple this year, and I had been on a roll the last part of last year, and I apologize, but I've been really messed up for a while, and the interesting surgery I had in December has just been complicated as hell, unintentionally, and even though I'm assured by people I don't trust that things won't get worse, I am about 1/3 convinced I'm going to have my entire thumb amputated. They had to take part of it in early December, emergency surgery. And the surgery I had last month was scheduled in major to surgically rebuild my arm and shoulder and hand and everything. More than just absolutely shredded rotator cuff, they also had to take the bicep out, and they had to do things with the ball and joint and with the bone on top. And it's been far more incapacitating than I anticipated. I haven't really been able to write, email, type almost at all. In fact, if I were to try and get anything out, I have to resort to like finger tapping because my right side is almost entirely incapacitated, and it's going to be for another allegedly 16 more weeks on this damn contraption. Yeah, been wanting to do a video. Oh, I'm just supposed to be testing the volume. What the fuck am I doing? No, I'm just going with it. I'm sorry. It's 3:41 a.m., which is pretty normal for me, but just all the unexpected complications, I guess, when the one surgery sort of overlapped the other, and especially since there were complications with this thumb and hand. Anything touches it, it feels like a serrated Tonto blade is just ripping right through the fucking thing. After having been under pretty hot flame for a while, this was so infected. They dug part of the thumb out, and the surgeon saw me again 5 weeks later. He's like, I might do this black, man. I miss everyone. I feel largely invisible and deserted. It's not meant to be a reflection on others. It's just when you're isolated like this. I've been isolated for years, but now almost completely helpless, which just really pisses me off. I'm making do, but I try and write out a few IQs, some cut up experiments regularly, just so I can feel like I'm still freaking alive, because otherwise I don't. And I have been enjoying doing some of these videos, reading some new poems, old poems, short stories, microfiction, some nonfiction, but really this year it's been very challenging just to function at times. There were periods where I was just physically and mentally incapacitated for a week at a time. And 2 days before my surgery last month, I've always had sleeping problems, narcolepsy, a bunch of stuff, but went 12 days with no sleep, which is ironic because I hate anesthesia and I hate pain medication, which is usually not effective on me anyway. But having had a lot of procedures, big and little, anesthesia is worse than surgery for me. It'll usually knock me for a loop for a week. Went 12 days with no sleep last month, 12 consecutive days with the anesthesia and all the hardcore pain meds, which naturally didn't use shit. I haven't responded to pain meds since about a decade. Ironically. And now is probably the first time in a long time when I might welcome such, if that were feasible or effective. It's not. Anyway, I guess I'm getting away the fact that I don't really feel up to it, but it's been a month since I've done a video, and now that it's 3:45 a.m. on today's date, I realize that this is my late father's birthday, the anniversary of his birthday. He would be, he was a lot younger than my mother. He would be 87 today. He died in 2013 in my house, mowing my yard for me. Regrets, okay? I'm wasting time, as I am wont to do, especially these days. I have a real challenge being focused and disciplined, which were strengths of mine most of my life. And that's also, everything is challenging in this, and it really is hard to admit and hard to live with. And what do you do? But I've been wanting to do a video, and I don't feel up to it. Just on the off chance that one or two people might see it. I wasn't sure what to do. I had been reading a few poems from my old out-of-print books in chronological order. But I thought, I'll read a few new pieces in maybe some short stories, just for change of pace. I've got long poems published, well, my whole life, but the past few years, but I also got a lot of fiction published. So for this year, because I can't write, I actually have had a number of poems published in 2026. But I just haven't even been able to write emails or anything more than just a few lines. So in light of that, I thought I would read 2 short stories that were recently published. One this year, one late last year, and a poem that was published late last year. None of these have appeared in any book or anything of mine. I don't think. No, actually, the poem they have. Yeah, the poem did. Sorry. In my book that came out in October, Surviving Immortality Again. But I'm going to try to do this and hope that the video won't be so horribly long that a few people who see it will just pitch it. Can't say that I blame you, but I thought I would do 2 short stories, like they're under 1,000 words, so I guess some would call them flash. And I have to lean forward because of the light and because I have to, I can't hold the stories. I really like this new camera much more so than my last one, but I haven't figured out how the hell to focus or drawback or anything yet. They actually provided documentation on like most of them, but it's about postage stamp size, and I actually got some binoculars recently, not to read postage stamp size documentation, but my old man eyes can't see that shit. That's nothing new, but it's like, God. Alright. These stories are going to be kind of typically crazy. I do sometimes feel obligated to remind people if I'm writing first person. A lot of my stuff is, a lot isn't, but sometimes people seem to react as though that's nonfiction. I have to remind people it may seem like I'm the protagonist, I'm the fucking author. It's fiction. If there are things that seem believable, well, what the fucking do, yeah. I write nonfiction. I won awards for nonfiction. If I want it to be nonfiction, it's got to be nonfiction. It's called creative writing. And I actually do have people sometimes get concerned about some of my first person stuff. People, there's a lot of stuff out there that we need to be concerned about. I don't think it's a couple of short stories of mine. I mean that in the broadest way possible. This first one appeared late last year in, I think, Mad Swirl magazine, one of my favorites, and it's called Change Redux. Since I didn't test the audio and video on this when I started, I am really hoping that this is being picked up, the audio, and that I'm just not wasting everyone's time, mine largely, but alright. It's going to be a little crazy, and not my craziest, but not all of my protagonists are necessarily people we want to emulate. In fact, almost everything I write, many of my characters, protagonists, what have you, have flaws. It's just to what degree. I think that's far more realistic than some others that I've read. Change Redux. I was in a bit of a surly mood, and I didn't know why. Maybe it was because I didn't get any of those wonderful checks I'd been expecting for 3 new stories, 4 poems, and 1 article. Why bother signing contracts with these publishers? Because these days, not too many seem to give a shit, and there's nothing you can really do. Naturally, I did get lots of bills and spam, though. I thought about downing a new bottle of Jack, but instead I walked into a coffee shop, proceeded to sit down with a cup of raspberry chocolate coffee. I noticed a tall, mussy man seemingly intent on hassling the young brunette waitress up at the counter, the one who just labored to make me such a fine caffeinated libation. Dude was clutching the bag to his chest frantically, had hair straight out of the Clash's London Calling period, had some mag stuffed in his jeans pocket. He wouldn't shut up. It wasn't long before the poor waitress looked like she was about to go insane. He kept asking whether the chairs were medium or large or small, rented or owned. In this public coffee shop where who really gives a shit, Fucking asshole. And This went on for 24 minutes. The girl was stuttering and seemed nearly in tears, while I myself felt a bit crazed. I don't like most people. I hate obnoxious assholes. Besides myself, who hassle others. Finally, she said, "Look, I'm sorry, but I've got work. There's a line. Come on." He went to a nearby table and sat down on one of those matching basic chairs found at all the tables. Relieved, I returned to my coffee and reached for the copy of a book I always carried on me, this time either an early Philip K. Dick story or a trusty old Bukowski novel. Except dude then got up and walked over to another table with the very same chairs and sat down in one. Immediately got up and went to another such chair and hit an internal loop button on this idiocy. I mean, the chairs were all the fucking same. Like the place had done one IKEA model wholesale, so what it mattered. He did this over and over again for 20 more minutes. I'd seen enough of this bullshit. I couldn't take it anymore. This 20-second attention span was about to make me crack, so I got up. I admittedly sometimes get a touch assertive at times. So I got up and went over to him and said, "What the hell are you doing, man? What's your fucking problem? Why don't you just take a fucking seat and stay for a while? You know, get comfy." He looked confused. So I popped him a quick one right under his right eye by the bridge of his nose rather than crushing his idiot nose like I wanted to. I still felt that great satisfying crunch beneath my knuckles, heard it shriek, and quickly bitch-slapped his nearly broken, bleeding face for good measure. It seemed like he wobbled too long before toppling backwards over the back of a torn olive green vinyl couch, blood and snot flying. He grunted like a stuck pig I once saw on my uncle's Minnesota farm, and then he started bawling. It sounded like he was going to hyperventilate. If you were watching, naturally. But not many people were in the shop, and you want to move our way? I only hoped I'd find confrontation enjoyable. Suddenly, though, it hit me that this guy was possibly DD. If not just simply nuts out, and I felt momentarily bad. I don't pick up on retarded people, and this seemed out of character for me. I didn't like how this made me feel, so I stepped around the couch where he lay gasping and drooling while sprawled virtually upside down, and I grimaced before launching a wicked roundhouse shitstorm with one of my steel-hulled dogs flush into his torso, feeling and hearing a couple of his ribs give way. Well, snap, actually. I recommended he get the hell out before I actually lost my temper. Sobbing, he hunched and dragged himself away toward the side door, snuffling and snorting the entire time. I returned to my seat, thinking I should feel satisfied. Well, now, finally, being able to make love to my coffee, and somehow I found myself experiencing vivid flashbacks in my mind, or were they visible to all, featuring my shrink's assertions of rageaholic compulsions worse than he'd ever seen, while I was simultaneously reminding myself I had an ex now for a reason as well. Funny how I didn't feel the usual satisfaction I'd enjoyed with problem solving by force in the past. It was half the fucking appeal, but now this? Shit. Now I felt, how to put it, watched. And with the not wholly welcome inspiration of the doc and my ex, as I just experienced, perhaps ultimately now a toughened freedom of newly discovered awareness. Affect change, my cousin Steve always said. Maybe it wasn't affect change so much as change will affect me. They said I needed an attitude adjustment. Maybe it was time, you never know, right? For God's sakes, if you don't think I intentionally wrote the protagonist as just a serious son of a bitch, you think I'm promoting this against creative writing. You don't think I'm aware of the flaws I wrote into them. Here's another odd one, I guess. Although those of you who may have seen some of my older books from a long time ago might recognize some similarities, even though those would have been poetry books. This appeared recently. I titled it "To Reference That Joy Division Song Again." I keep my curtains drawn, lights low, paranoia level high. These fucking nosy neighbors called the cops on me while I was washing the dishes with the kitchen window open, not yet owning drapes or blinds. They told the cops they saw me break out a butcher knife and actually carve my arms into bloody ribbons while giving them death grins and other weird shit that the cops had created by bribing to check things out. It seemed ludicrous. I mean, I was wearing a perfectly clean white button-down, home from work. If I'd been using a butcher knife to carve my arms into bloody ribbons like my drugged-out, inbred neighbors asserted, my perfect white shirt would look kind of different, you know? Maybe with some reddish stains, maybe actively dripping or worse, blood staining it, or literally soaking through the cloth, confirming their indictment of me rather than showing the cops they were weirdo troublemakers, obviously. Except the cops never asked to look at my actual arms, torso, or anything else, nor to roll up my sleeves or disrobe so they could ascertain for themselves the truth of what seemed obvious. Clean white shirt, no blood, no harm, no foul, right? It said things were momentarily interesting when the younger cops saw a raised white scar on my left hand and asked about it. We all laughed when I admitted that I'd done some stupid things in college, and this had been one of them, that when going through Hell Week near the end of pledging my fraternity, I drunkenly lost a stupid dare/bet and was forced to endure 2 seniors carving the fraternity's great leader symbols into my hand with a knife. Hurt like hell, and no one had thought I'd basically be branded for life, but there you are, crazy officers, right? Right. Though, if you actually looked hard at the scar, it'd be tough to make out which Greek letters, which fraternity. Because I remember those Greek letters in the fraternity. Some might look and conclude it was more likely the work of Freddy Krueger, not drunk frat boys eager to score points. Honestly, I sure couldn't guess what could be seen on that scar. It was an angry mishmash of cuts, slices, and etchings amounting to chaos theory. Not really what the power of suggestion would lead others to believe they saw. What and which realities are ever right anyway? I doubt anyone really knows. I wanted to be left alone, and finally was. First, one clueless cop, though, admitted he'd always wondered what kind of weird shit these frat kids did. Laughed when I replied, obviously not just those drunken orgies you always see in the movies, although there were those. I was glad to see them go when they did, because I was kind of surprised and relieved they hadn't asked me to remove my shirt. If I had, I'd have a whole lot of explaining to do about all the scars decorating my body, my arms, chest, inner thighs, the tic-tac-toe game carved into my chest over time with many beautiful tools, most especially my cold steel 15-inch serrated Tonto I love so much, nor the bloody serrated loving courtesy my benchmade saw, Gerber, K-Bar, Kershaw, and other beloved blades in my collection. Yeah, hard to explain, but harder still, I imagine. The arms wrapped into rapidly dampening rust-colored ace bandages, and I noticed with some leakage that would be hard to explain. to hell right. As I ripped the bandages from my arms, you could see scars, scabs, open, red, and soaking wet cuts, oozing blood, leaking blood. In a new development, even gushing blood. But it was the scars, those precious scars that were key to my identity, my very existence. Weren't tags, weren't Greek letters, weren't pentagrams, but just me. Weren't shit, were never supposed to be like me. Because chaos theory can rule the mind and body just as legitimately as it seeks to explain other concepts more theoretically, but very real and tangible, if in a micro way, my personal needs, fears, beliefs, coping skills. I mean, no one would believe this shit, right? Who ever heard of a middle-aged man who cuts because foreplay sucks in comparison and he's addicted to creating and maintaining scars of beauty and significance on his most loved and hated canvas? Would never happen, right? I mean, they'd lock anyone like that up, call him Hannibal or something like that, because we're not dealing with geniuses here, or creatives, or artists. Pencil-pushing, brain-dead cogs in a machine who pack heat, who will kill in a heartbeat, but would call me the sick one. My scars bear out my philosophy and my loves and fears. The other people's lack of visible scars don't hide their internal cancerous decay nor their fear of anyone not like them. I call bullshit on them. I like it better alone. I always preferred DeSalle's cover of Joy Division's Isolation to the original. Its industrial aggression that comes screaming out at you more accurately reflects my sense of personal isolation and my feelings that Ian Curtis's distinctive voice sharing those same lyrics. But for me, the band's near synth-pop sound that tries to drearily bounce along with the listener in an existential despair really undercuts the rage and bitterness I feel that few are more qualified to express on my behalf than Ministry's Al Jurgensen, who apparently vividly produced the DeSalle version. Maybe it's really this simple. Joy Division's versions to very real suicidal ideation, as we would all find out. But DeSalle's Isolation could be just scar tissue layered on more scar tissue, yet though the flesh decays and body weakens, the only suicide to be found is more likely invented by some pervy author seeking a harmony between control and chaos they've never attained. But it won't kill them, their characters, or their reader either. Just more scarring in a world of art for art's sake. And maybe that's good enough. If I'm reading a published story, being fairly new to YouTube, might go get dinged for using words like that. Could I? What is it when you see people trying to avoid words that I just consider standard part of everyday vocabulary? I really don't feel like getting dinged. But I do want to end it on a totally different note, maybe a little more upbeat for those still around, if this gets posted, with this poem that I probably spent more time trying to write and edit and write and edit and write and edit so long, more than almost any other I've ever done. And it took me forever to get it published. Don't know why, because I like it. I've had a lot of stuff I think not nearly as good get published easily. But this was published last year in Cosmic Deaf Doll Journal, Volume 11, for which I'm grateful. It was very competitive to get into. And this poem is called We Would Have Found Robert Bond Again. We would have found Robert Bond in Rome if we had made it there on time, or perhaps Madrid. Never the Vatican, but maybe Pamplona instead. Earlier, perhaps Kenya, or later Delhi. You'd have been in a hot little dive with excellent food and sweating drinks, listening to music and engaging in talk like back in Tangier. You'd speak of poetry, musicians, and the saxophone. Listen to pounding drums while in the background a wistful violin played for its near-dead audience. We would have found Robert Bond in New York City if we'd flown there. You claiming work toward an MBA at Columbia, of all things, as though that last degree gotten in Rome didn't count outside Europe, and sweating out those American summers, which after all really don't compare to the heat in Kenya or Egypt. Man, you do get around, my friend, at least since getting kidnapped in Mogadishu. You learned better travel strategies and can still hear the throbbing and rumbling of the music. Lucky you that. We took a red-eye to Cozumel, having heard you were there snorkeling, yet naturally missed you a single day. But jetting off to see the Nile on your own, you put Hemingway to shame. Last month I sent you a message announcing the publication of one of my new poetry books, only to have it returned to me, address unknown, unable to forward. I thought that said so much, really. You wraith, you ghost, will likely never catch up to you, but if little else, do those piano bars wicked justice for old time's sake. Don't forget to keep trying to resurrect Esquivel, and we'll be forever gloriously eternal. Maybe I like that one because it has more personal meaning, that has more actual reality to it than any of the silly stories I just read. Robert, like several of us, had an interesting life, it would appear. And now this video is approaching record length for me, and after that second story I read, now that I think about it, the algorithms might not appreciate some of the words I used, although I'm not even sure I swore. It's just some words are, I guess, naughty these days. I'm an old fucking dinosaur, man. I can't keep up with it. Nor do I approve. Sorry. I guess I'm supposed to recite what everybody recites, but I never learned it. But if you're here, if you're watching, I would appreciate a like, a subscribe, comment, share. I don't get that many views here on YouTube for probably obvious reasons, but people share. There are other platforms where there are a lot more. So that's really cool. Feel free to engage if you want to find out more about me or my stuff, or reading my stuff. My website is hankrules2011.com. A lot of info there. You can do a search for me. My name is Scott Holstad, or Scott C Holstad, and sometimes if you append a term after my name, like author or poet or writer or quotes or poems, you'll come up with a ton of different search results. There's always going to be some redundancy, but it's just amazing how many things there are. My most recent book of poems came out last October. It's on Amazon, and I always have a very poor way of ending these videos, so I've learned the best thing to do is just to end them. I don't even know if this will get posted, it's too damn long anyway. But it was good to make this effort again for the first time in a month, and I would love to engage, say hi, have someone say hi. guess that's it. I'll have to sort of lurch forward to try and reach the computer because I'm trapped. So, the weekend is approaching. Our last remaining feline child is doing very poorly. It's not going over well with the household. It's a tough time. I believe we have a vet appointment today. We spent a fucking fortune trying to keep this cat alive for years. I hope all of you have a good day and a good weekend. And feel free to reach out. Stay safe, people.